So I'll say the main thing is what creates a positive atmosphere initially is a smile. Obviously, you don't have to be showing all your teeth whilst you're smiling, but you can go in, smile. We need to actually go over the technical questions that you guys actually need to. We need to go over the HCP, DNS. We have to go over everything. Like we have to do. Like, they reassured me since they started before me. They were like, it's not like that at all whatsoever. They teach you from the very beginning. So I was like, at least that put me a bit at ease, but I still was.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah, ثم الصلاة والسلام على نبي المصطفى وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, we are excited today. If you want to join the tech sector, if you want to change your career, if you want to become an IT expert, this session is for you. We are excited and privileged to have Engineer Omar Ossoble, who works in the tech sector. He started his journey from zero, and now he works one of the top companies in London. So welcome, Engineer Omar.
For the introduction, Ma'alin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wa salam Ma'alin and everyone else. How are we all doing today?
We're all doing great, mashallah ta'ala. And we are happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be here, Ma'alin. I'm happy to be here. Yes.
So give us some overview before you came to the tech sector, before you joined the tech sector. What inspired you? What was the motive behind you coming to the IT?
My main motive coming into IT was getting into a career that is respectable. That was the main thing that drove me. Not just only that, was my passion for technology as well. I saw how I liked using telephones. Nowadays, everyone's addicted to phones, laptop, etc. Technology in itself drew me in. So that in itself drove me to get into a field where it aligns with my hobbies and what I like to do. So which is why I end up in IT. I joined GlobalNet not too long ago. I joined GlobalNet, but before that, I was like everyone else. I went to secondary school, sixth form, etc. End up working, but then, alhamdulillah, I found out about Ma'alin. I found out there was a way to actually get into a career field, a respectable career, technical field, without going into university. That was the main thing also. So alhamdulillah, I found Ma'alin, came here, and Ma'alin helped me out. Like Ma'alin said, I started from zero. Alhamdulillah, I landed my first IT support job.
Okay, so you, Mr. Omar, came to the school. I sat with you, gave you the plan, and tell us how many courses you did with us with GlobalNet before you started looking for an IT job.
So I started looking for an IT job after I completed the server course. That's when I started looking for an IT job. But ideally, you can look for an IT job even before you get to the third course. You can look for an IT job whilst you're doing Network Plus. All you need is a very good CV and Ma'alin's advice, following Ma'alin's advice, and then inshallah you will land yourself a tech job.
Okay, so you came to the school, you did the courses, Community A+, and Network, and then after that the server.
Yes.
Of course, you have to take all of that and you have to execute. What motivated you to put the CV together and start applying tech job?
What motivated me was when I saw the colleagues in GlobalNet around my age, when the seminars, I was just like you guys, the students who are currently here today. Ma'alin used to always bring in people who are working in different career fields within IT. They were speaking about their journey in itself, and it was really inspiring hearing that another Somali person was able to get into the tech industry. So I thought to myself, if he's able to do it, then I can do it as well. All I need to do is just put my mind to it and then just get to it.
Okay. Let's go through the CV.
Of course, yes.
What is the ideal CV? How do you prepare?
An ideal CV will be obviously your name included. Start off by having your name, number, and email address for them to contact you on. And then after, within the CV, give a background story about yourself. Once you do that, speak about your education, what kind of education you've completed. Then you speak about your work experience that you've done before. And then after, inshallah, also speak about that you have some sort of IT background as well, which is very critical and important. Most companies nowadays, they value someone who has experience. They will go for someone who has experience over inexperience. doesn't mean that you can't get an IT job if you've never worked in an IT job before. In regards to what their work experience, etc., Ma'al Abdullah will help you out in regards to that matter. So you know you're 100% sorted in regards to their work experience. But you just need to make sure within the CV that you articulate yourself, that you make sure that you portray an image that you're a hard-working person. Yeah, so, and what I will say is people don't tend to go into more details in regards to what they've done in the IT. And you also need to make sure that when you are building your CV, that it needs to align with the job spec that you're applying for. So you need to make sure that the skill requirements that the job spec has, you need to make sure that it correlates to your CV, which is really important.
But let me ask you, Mr. Omar, sometimes you come across a job spec on maybe LinkedIn, maybe other platforms, and your CV is not aligned to that specific job.
Yeah.
Okay, you fix your CV, you change and modify, but then you come across another adverts.
Yeah.
Then how do you keep changing your CV from time to time? What is the shortcut for that?
Okay, perfect. So the main thing is in regards to the job specs, some of the job specs will have like similar qualities that they're looking for within like knowing how to do Active Directory, etc. So you just need to make sure that your job spec covers the generic IT support first line role. So that is when it's upon you to actually go do the research, find out, even watch YouTube videos or tutorials even like of and CVs, etc. There's so many sources that are online. You just need to make sure that your CV aligns with the generic service desk role that you're applying for.
Okay, before I move on from here, you know, some people, they say, oh, I applied a job on LinkedIn, on maybe Indeed, maybe JobSafe, and as soon as they submit the job or maybe the CV, they get a rejection automatically. Yeah. Is that happened to you before?
Of course, Ma'alin, it's happened to me before, which is why I will advise for anyone who's actually serious about getting a tech job, you should be applying at least for 50 jobs minimum per day.
Wow.
50 jobs minimum per day, just so you know that you weigh out your options. And then from then onwards, like even when you get rejected, they'll give you a reason as to why they rejected you. So some of the times, like you may make it to the interview stage and then you get rejected after the interview stage. They'll give you feedback and then you just need to make sure that you work on that. Also make sure that you align yourself with people like-minded or someone who also has a tech job and ask them questions. Make sure you have a close friend that is within the IT industry because that will help a lot too.
That's a very good tip. And so you applied X number of jobs every single day.
Yes.
You said 50 jobs a day.
Yes.
So what do you say about the best time to apply? Is that in the morning, early morning or afternoon, or what is the best time to look and...
I will say best time to apply will be in the morning. In the morning around... It could either be from 8 to 10 is the best time, but obviously you can apply even during the day.
Is that? Why in the morning 8 to 10?
So they can see that you are actively early in the mornings applying within that specific early morning timings.
Okay. And also sometimes they advertise the jobs in the morning.
Yes.
And maybe they have a threshold.
Yes.
X number of people apply.
Yes.
They might close the system.
100% yes. And also there could be the fact that when you apply in the morning, you might make it before a deadline, like Ma'alin said, the threshold, yes, which is very key as well.
That's good.
So the main thing is, for starters, like you said, Ma'alin, once you apply for the job, before the company calls you, the recruiter will call you. Most of the time, the recruiter will call you, and you just need to speak to the recruiter. So the recruiter won't ask you too many questions, but you need to make sure that you know your CV you need to make sure that you know the ins and outs of your CV. You have to make sure that you know your CV. So anything you put in your CV, you need to be able to paraphrase it because that's what mainly the main thing is about. Not just only that, but you also have to show that you actually want the job.
So basically you have to show dedication and commitment and
drive,
passion and drive to get a job.
Yes, 100%, yes, man, you have to. Even I think like even in my interview, I showed so much passion. I was not just only for the industry as well. You need to make sure that you also do research about the company that you're applying for. I think when I done the interview, I told them about congratulations for you guys for achieving this and that. So
wow.
Yeah. So just make sure that you learn about the background of the company, not just only that. Also make sure like when you're having the interview, that you are conversating with the interviewer. It doesn't feel like it's a question and answer, but it feels like it's a friendly conversation, but that's professional. Exactly, yes. Okay. You have to be smiling as well. The way you carry yourself as well carries a big picture in it.
So what are the main tips to join the entire interview dynamics?
So I'll say the main thing is what creates a positive atmosphere initially is a smile. If you go in, smile. Obviously, you don't have to be showing all your teeth whilst you're smiling, but you can go in smiling. You smile first, which creates a positive atmosphere. Because the interviewer, the way I got the job, even he was like to me, my manager was like to me, when I got hired, he was like to me, one of the reasons that we actually hired you was because of your smile, you know.
So next time you smile, yeah?
Yeah, smiling is a very important thing. Personality is a very big thing. Because when you start the job, they train you from the very beginning. So they train you from the very beginning. They need someone that's pleasant. Someone that when the users come ask for help, someone they're willing to, someone that's welcoming, that creates a welcoming atmosphere. So smiling is very important. Also make sure that you're able to conversate with the interviewer, that you've got a personality. Ask them about how they're doing themselves. Ask them about, and in regards to like how the office atmosphere is, how is the dynamic within the office. Ask them about what kind of people they support, how many people they support, this and that. Just ask them like rough surface questions.
Okay. But you know, there's one issue, Omar.
Yes.
MashaAllah, you're a very good communicator and speaker.
Yeah.
But some people, they get nervous when they go to the interview.
That's very true, man.
Maybe they have a fear. Maybe they have they never did interview face to face.
No, of course.
Or maybe they how they are.
Yes, that's
so
very
what is the
true.
best way to overcome that nervousness?
Also, when I done my first interview, I was nervous when I done my first interview. And I will say the best way to actually overcome the interview is to overcome the nervousness is to literally either you mentally tell yourself that even if this goes wrong and it doesn't even work out, I can always apply for another one. I think either that, but it's something that you have to work on mentally. I think the more interviews that you do, the more that you get over the nervousness, is the more that you do.
Basically, you are saying it's nothing to lose.
Exactly.
Either you get the job,
or you don't.
Or maybe it will be a learning experience for you.
Yes.
And you learn how to answer the questions.
Of course.
What sort of questions you expect.
Of course.
And you can take that information with you and do one
100%. And not just only that, but you can also practice. Like you can have a camera, you can create like a similar dynamic, get a group of friends or whatever, get them to question you, have a camera, etc., whatever, and then just get them to ask you questions, and they just get used to speaking in front of a camera. It all comes down to the mindset at the end of the day, though. You have to be resilient.
So basically, practice makes perfect.
Yes.
And that's what you did, and Mohammed and Ahmed.
Everyone, yes. Yes, that's what all we did. We all practiced, that's it. Practice makes perfect, yes, man.
Okay, that's good, mashallah. So, you know, interview, they have different type of questions.
Yes.
Some of them are HR questions, and some of them are technical.
Yes.
So what I need from you
to
highlight maybe 3, 4, 5 HR questions, and then after that we move on to technical questions. So what are the main 5 or 3 or 4 HR questions that come most of the time?
They will ask you about your previous experience, not just your previous work experience, but they'll also ask you what you like to do, hobbies. They may ask you your hobbies, but mainly they might ask you like scenario questions. They'll probably ask you like scenario questions. I'll say it will be formulating around scenario questions. I'll say they'll ask you, you're meant to say a user calls in with an issue that he's facing an issue, whatever issue he's facing, but you're not able to currently resolve it. And it's quite urgent. And the customer, he's swearing at you. He's using foul language. He's angry and he's using foul language at you.
Okay.
How would you carry yourself in that situation?
What would you do then?
And what would you say to him in that regard? So what I said was, and first of all, I'll make sure that I reassure the customer. I'll be very empathetic about the customer and put myself in his shoes. Even if he swears, I'll be empathetic about it. Let him know that we are actually on this case, and if it needs to be escalated, that it will be escalated. So, and reassure the customer and make sure that if I state a specific time frame that it will get resolved, that I'll call him back at, that I make sure that I adhere to it.
And there's another common question they normally ask, which is basically at the end they ask, okay, do you have any question for us?
Yes.
So can you share with us maybe 2-3 questions you
So
normally ask?
yeah, so at the end you ask them, for example, like you ask them about the office stand. You can ask them, by the way, how's the office dynamic? How's the office dynamic, and how many team members are there currently in the office working together? And you can even ask, and I don't know if you should, in regards to this question, you can even ask like how many interviewers are being interviewed for this role.
And you have to do full research about the company.
Yes,
so
you have
to go online, the website, have
100%.
The CEO, maybe the chair,
100%.
The locations they have.
Yes, and even I'll say the main thing to do even is you don't even have to do like an in-depth research into it. What you need to make sure is that you know about what the company does. That's the most important thing, because they will ask you, what do you know about the company? So that's going to be one of the first questions they will ask you. What do you know about the company? And it's upon you then to tell them, I know this about the company. The company was formed this and that. The company supports this and that, etc. This and that. So yeah. So knowing about the company is very important. It's not mostly what's important is about that you show them the drive. Because like I said, they may ask you like a few technical questions. I think my job, they only asked me like one technical question. That's it. One technical. It was mainly they were seeing their personality, because they said to me after they hired me, they said, what we need is someone that we can actually train from the very beginning, because my company supports 10,000 users. Wow. So they said, so what we need is someone that we know that is pleasant to be around. That's a very important thing for us. So most companies, they value your personality, but when they do ask you a technical question, if they ask you like 3 technical questions, you need to be able to answer 2 out of 3 at least.
Okay, let me ask you, Omar.
Yes.
How many interviews did you go through before you landed your first IT job?
So I went through, alhamdulillah, I didn't go through too much. I think I went through around like any amount between 7 to 10 interviews before I got my IT job.
You mean face-to-face or over the phone?
Mostly was Teams.
Oh,
all Teams, yeah.
Okay.
I think I done one face-to-face, one face-to-face.
And that's the one you got?
No, that's the one I didn't get. I got the one I got was through Teams.
Okay, tell me the other one you did not get. Why? Do you remember the reason?
Most people get rejected because they're not able to answer the questions properly, and they don't know how to carry themselves in an interview. Most people make the interview, you know how you're speaking to someone that you don't know. And you need to give them the reason as to why they need to hire you. It's like, for example, like if I'm selling a pen to Ma'alin, I need to make sure that Ma'alin sees as to why this pen stands out and why he needs to buy it and how it will help him. So by doing that is by you yourself selling yourself to the person. And the way you do that is by doing research of the company and see what they value, and you make sure that you align with that. So I think one of my biggest failures was, for example, that interview that I failed was because I didn't do the proper research into the company.
Okay.
So which is what I learned the hard way from that, was learning that doing research about the company was important. They asked me, what do you know about the company? But I didn't give them a satisfying answer.
That's very good. So the message here, if you apply an IT job and you're going to interview, make sure to learn about the company. Go to the website, go to the LinkedIn, and find out. Even you can approach someone who works in the company, because now
of
LinkedIn,
course.
you can approach some
100%. Yes, you can message people literally, or even when you put your CV up, sometimes they'll even come message you if your CV looks interesting.
So knowing about the company is very important.
Yeah.
Somalian ku sheegay qisa jirta dhab ah, one of the guys applied macnaha shaqooyinka and waxa la weydiiyey, what do you know about Face?
Yeah.
And Face was short for the company name. And he thought about the face.
Wow.
That's true story. And that happened, I think, 2008, 2009. So the message here, how guys, prepare yourself.
100% prepare yourself.
Expect all sorts of questions. And that's why we do this type of sessions.
No, 100%.
So you can learn from his journey.
Also, I was going to add as well, like there's 2 types of companies. For example, there's the company that values their personality, and there's one that will ask you like, on the phone, they will ask you like, or even video, they will have like 30 technical questions ready, and they will ask you technical questions back to back. There's those companies, but there's most of the companies, I'll say, most of the Adan companies, they value their personality. But what I realized from my anecdotal experiences that Badanki, quick companies that are from like the Asian companies, etc.
Yeah, exactly.
Too much technical questions. They have like questions prepared like back to back in non-stop. So yeah, so there's those two kind of companies.
Okay. Let's come back to the technical questions.
Yes.
Can you name some of the maybe 3-4 questions that comes most of the time?
Yeah, so they will ask you definitely something that's related to Active Directory. They might ask you like, for example, how do you reset a password? They might ask you a basic question. They might ask you like, how do you reset a password on Active Directory? I'm sure everyone here knows. They probably might ask you, for example, like, what would you do if the user's email isn't displaying the most up-to-date emails? Like, what would you do in that scenario? They may ask you, for example, like, why is it when this guy is, how come the Wi-Fi keeps dropping from the laptop? They may ask you, for example, when I tried accessing this web browser, for example, but it's not displaying any images at all whatsoever. Like, what am I meant to do? They're not going to ask you like complex technical questions. They'll probably ask you like technical questions on things that you'll be doing your day to day within your IT 9 to 5.
So of course, he went through about maybe 6-7 interviews. Some of them Teams, some of them face to face.
Yeah.
Then eventually, one of the companies said, "Yes, we need you, Omar."
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So tell us that day when you received the offer through email or
okay, I'll tell you.
Phone call.
So the day I received that offer over a phone call. So when he told me I got the job, this and that, I was like, I asked him, oh really? He's like, yes, they actually want you. They want you to start as soon as possible. They were very impressed with the interview. I was like, thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you. I'm really grateful, this and that. And then after he sends me the contract, I was still a bit skeptical until I actually...
The panic shock, yeah?
Yeah, until I got the offer letter, the offer letter. And that's when I celebrated. I was like, yes, alhamdulillah, I actually got it. After all that hard work, alhamdulillah, I actually got it.
I remember you called me that day and you said, Ma'na, I got the job.
Straight away, yes, wallahi. Like it was yesterday. I was like, Ma'alin, alhamdulillah, I got the job. Ma'al, I need you to have the reference ready for me, Ma'alin.
So, okay, you got the offer, you signed the contract, of course. Then they gave you a starting date, you went to the office.
Yeah.
So, tell us about the first day you went to the office and started your role.
Okay, perfect. So, usually you start either at 9 o'clock, some companies start at 8:30. But I was on the first day, they won't tell you to come at the starting time where everyone starts. They'll probably tell you come 1 hour and a half later. So, they told me, Omar, be here, etc. on the 20th. I still remember till this day. It was the 20th of March at 10. They told me come in at 10:30 a.m. So I got up, I went in, etc. When I walked through the office door, the manager comes. No, actually, no, I had to wait in front of the reception area. The manager came, he collected me. And then after that, we spoke to him for a bit. He was like, oh, you'll get used to the workplace, this and that. He was trying to make me feel at ease. Went into the office. Oh yeah, by the way, when you're going in first day, you need to make yourself look presentable. Like, even if they tell you to wear casual smart, just be suited and booted to the maximum. So I was suited and booted, went into the office, and then after that, he told me, sit here. He told me sit next to the second line engineer. And then all I see is everyone that's part of the team, either everyone who first lines, there was no first liners, the second liners, third liners, the people who are working in network were all coming up to me trying to make me feel at ease. They're like, hi there, welcome, this and that. My name is this and that. Normal introductions. But take this away though. When you're going in, they may not have your logins fully set up. They may not have your admin login fully set up or your normal login fully set up. Not just only that, but you do not do anything at all whatsoever within that first 2-week period. What you basically are, you are a shadow. You're going to be shadowing the second line engineer. So the second line engineer you'll be shadowing, seeing what he does, etc., this and that. So that's when it comes upon you to ask them questions. Like even like have your laptop notepad open, take notes, ask questions, make yourself seem like you're eager. Don't just sit back and just watch and not ask any questions at all whatsoever. You have to be you have to show that, again, that you're driven and that you're willing to learn. Yeah, so basically, that's it. You'll be shadowing for 2 weeks. And then after that, they're slowly going to bring you into doing their first line role. So for example, with me, they told me as soon as they create my admin login, etc., I was still shadowing, but they said, well, all I want you to do is just create new users. That's it.
Is that all?
That's what they said. For at least I was creating new users for at least like 1 week.
But that they were expecting.
I was expecting
to get questions about how to set up DNTB or DNS
everything.
Or
Yes,
this and that.
Yes. I was expecting all the technical questions like we did. Even before I started the job, like 2 weeks before even I started the job, like I remember I went to my abti, I was like to him, listen, and Mohammed, I was like to him, listen, we need to actually go over the technical questions that you guys actually need to go over the HCP, DNS, we have to go over everything, like we have to do. Like I was watching YouTube videos, like I was panicking to the point where I was like watching YouTube videos on like a day-to-day and within the IT lives, within the service desk day. I was like, no, imagine if they ask me a question and I'm not able to answer it, are they gonna kick me out? Listen, I was asking myself 21 questions. And then after that, they reassured me, since they started before me, they were like, it's not like that at all whatsoever. They teach you from the very beginning. So I was like, at least that put me a bit at ease, but I still was nervous in the back of my head. So even on my way to the shako place, I was just checking Google, like I was searching Google, like how do I do this? How do I do that? But when I went in, and they told me that I have to shadow this person for the whole day. In my head, I'm like, Alhamdulillah. So it didn't turn out to be.
So basically, here the message is, man, sometimes people exaggerate.
Yeah? Of course, yes.
So they have the feet in mind, they expect the worst.
100%.
When it comes to the first IT job, it's not like that.
100% is not like.
You shadow with someone.
100%.
Maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, or maybe a bit more.
Yes, man.
So there's nothing to fear about.
100%.
All you need is prepare yourself.
100%.
Confidence.
Yes.
And if you don't know anything, of course, you can Google.
Yes, Google. And also, if you don't know anything, you can ask.
So how to be a good shadower and speed up the process. Because if the company sees you are a good person, you're learning, they'll give you
perfect.
tasks.
No, 100%, Mali. So I'll say this, for example, main thing to do is when you're shadowing the person, have your notes ready, ask questions, be involved, try find out. If he shows you how to do something once, just make sure that you never ask that question again, unless it's more complex than it needs to be.
Absolutely.
So you just need to make sure that you're taking your notes literally step by step. Because I remember when I was shadowing, I had my notepad ready of, like, for example, like, even they have their own notes, they'll give you their own notes, but it's still not good enough. You need to make sure that you understand so you're able to make your own notes. Exactly, which is very important. And the time that you're asking them questions, make sure you ask as many questions as you can. Best thing to do is ask all the questions that you need to ask once, but make sure that it's not repetitive. So get your questions all out of the way.
They hate if you ask the same question
again, twice. Yes, they'll get annoyed about it, and they'll think that you're incompetent. So you need to.
That's absolutely true.
Yes.
They hate that.
100%.
So you have to be proactive. You have to be very proactive.
100%.
Ask smart questions.
Yes. Make sure that you don't ask like stupid questions at all whatsoever. It has to be like smart questions. And even for example, like most questions, generic questions. For example, like if you don't know, for example, like. If you don't know when Outlook isn't responding, etc., or if the latest emails aren't showing, like, what am I meant to do, for example? Just make sure that you've done the basic steps. And if you ask the question, just make sure that you've covered some form of troubleshooting, basic troubleshooting. Just make sure that you cover your bases.
And it's good because if they see you learning and proactive and going online and searching, they're willing to help.
100%. And also make sure, guys, remember this, you're in a probation period. Some company, their period lasts for 3 months, others 6 months. it is upon you to actually make sure that you display your not only your best behavior by coming 15 minutes early every single day, not just only that, but your work ethic has to reflect that as well. It is very important within those 6 months that you go above and beyond before you start getting a bit complacent. You have to make sure that you pass your probation period 100%.
So after the shutdown, of course,
Yes.
your job title is service desk analyst.
Yes.
But that kind of first line and second line together?
Yes. So in regards to that matter, basically you'll be the first point of contact. So they will call you in, or they will, if you're on site, if you're working for an on-site company, they will come up to you about anything. It is upon you to know, for example, like what you're meant to do. If you're meant to, so for example, after the shadowing, obviously you won't know like and what escalates to certain teams, etc., this and that. That is when it's upon you within the shadowing period, learn as much as you can. If you don't know something, for example, if you don't know there's something and your team doesn't support it, first line doesn't support it, and you have to escalate it to second line, just make sure that when you're asking the question is a question that you haven't asked before.
Okay, let me come to this.
Yeah.
And of course, you go to the office in the morning.
Yeah.
You go and grab your cup of tea.
Your cup of coffee,
you're
yes.
Coffee person or tea person?
Coffee, always coffee.
Coffee
yes.
person, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, and you log into the ticketing system.
Yes.
So what ticketing system do you have in your organization?
So, for example, we use ServiceNow.
Okay.
Yeah, so we use ServiceNow.
That's the one you had on your CV, isn't it?
And no, I said on my CV I had Zendesk.
Oh, Zendesk. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But as long as you know and familiar with one of the ticketing systems,
then it's fine.
Any other ticketing
Yeah.
system, because the concept, the core concept is same.
It's similar, yes.
Just a user interface.
Yeah, and it's the thing whereas like even when the shadowing period, for example, they will show you how you're meant to log an incident versus compared to how you're meant to log a request. When converting an incident to a request, they'll show you all that within their shadowing period, and they'll be expecting you to ask those kind of questions if you haven't used that similar ticketing system.
Okay, I met one of the students, and
Yeah.
he was questioned about, can you tell me the difference between incident and
And a request, yes.
So if you summarize for them, what is the main difference
Okay,
between
perfect. I'll tell you.
incident and request?
Perfect. So the main difference between an incident and a request is it's in the name. So within the incident is something you log after you've done troubleshooting steps. So for example, I'll give you an example. If someone says, I need you to give me access to this printer, and the person gives you the host name of the printer, most places you just add it to the AD profile. That is a request, because they asked you to give them access to something. It's not something you're troubleshooting, it's something that you're giving them access to. Whereas if someone else was to call, that's a request. Whereas if someone else was to call and they say, my Outlook isn't responding, what can I do? You remote in, after you remote in, you check the uptime of the PC, you see if you need to run a repair on Outlook or maybe recreate their profile. You are then taking active steps to fix that problem. So that's the main difference. Incident is when you're fixing a problem, and the other one is when you're giving access to, is when they're requesting something. So that's, I'll say, the main difference.
That's a very clear and short answer. MashaAllah, well done. Another question is, when you log into the ticketing system, of course, you have a number of jobs.
Yeah.
And they use what they call SLA.
Oh, my place don't have that, alhamdulillah, yes.
You don't have?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, yes. I'll summarize it. Of course, I'll summarize.
Can you summarize what SLA is and how people use SLA?
Of course. So what people use for SLAs is when they put a specific time period that you have in order to resolve that ticket. Some SLAs may be up to like 24 hours. Some may be 2 days, 3 days. Every company is different. But if your company has an SLA, you need to make sure at least that you need to look into that matter. It's not something that you can just say, I'll wait towards like an hour or two or etc. So best thing to do is, if your company does SLAs, is if there's an email that comes in, if they call in, etc., and you log it, just make sure that you either try to get a hold of them, but if you're not able to get a hold of them, but you send an email to them and the ticket goes on hold, that counts as the SLA being on pause because they haven't got back to you yet. But when they get back to you again, that's when the SLA starts. So best thing to do is you have to make sure if your company has SLAs, you have to be proactive. Always be proactive. Look out for it. Some ticketing systems will give you alerts when someone replies to your email. So when someone replies to an email, say like for example, so the ticketing system, it's got the person's name and is assigned to you, etc. And there's details what the incident's about. So you can contact that person through the incident. So since it's assigned to you and you open the incident under the user's name, so when you reply to it, it's them getting an email directly to their company mailbox, their own mailbox, automatically. So then it goes on hold. So when they reply, you'll get an alert. But if your ticketing system doesn't get an alert, etc., you just need to be proactive and check. But most do get alerts.
And always you have to update the ticket.
Yes, which is what I do is, there's sometimes, whereas there's also within the ticketing system, there's an engineering note. There's also engineer notes as well. So the engineer notes are the notes, whereas only you and the people who have access to the ticketing system can see what you've written on there. So best thing to always do is if you do not resolve the incident and you're planning to put it on hold, best thing to do is put the troubleshooting steps that you have done in the engineering notes before you, even before you close it, just put the troubleshooting steps in so they can see exactly what you've done. So this can be in reference to a future. If you come across a similar incident, for example, that comes across, just refer it to that. And also what I do is also, for example, like if I've got an incident, for example, that I need to escalate to another team, if they call in about a different software, since different companies use different softwares and they support different softwares and applications. So the company that I work for is a health clinic company, so they use health clinic applications. So there's certain things, since I'm external, I'm not, our company does not have access to something that's correlated to within the internal patient, etc. stuff. So there's application they use to document details of the patient that they may say, the application is called Meditech, for example. My Meditech account is locked, for example. Can you unlock it for me? You will be the first point of contact no matter what. I'm like, I can't deal with it since it's an the internal IT team deals with this matter, but I will take the details down and I'll escalate it further to them. So what I do shortcut is that incident that I create, I send that incident number, keep it somewhere in my computer so I don't have to rewrite it every time. I copy and paste what's on the previous incident and pass it over.
If you cannot fix it,
yes,
you have to escalate.
Second line or 100%.
Third line, depends the level you're at.
And also one more point as well to add to Ma'ali's point is this. If there's an incident that you come across that you don't know how to fix, most of the time, the incident has a subject line and it has the details. So the subject line might be Outlook issue, this and that. What you can do is you can copy that subject line and search in the ticketing system and it will show you past ticketing systems.
Similar issues,
yeah. And then you see what this is why it's important to update the engineering notes. Then you'll see what troubleshooting steps they've done. And then you can just follow those steps.
And just copy and paste.
Copy and paste, literally. Just work the system.
That's good. And first line support, of course, you deal with a lot of issues, hardware, software, applications, network, Wi-Fi, all of that.
Yeah.
So can you summarize what are the typical issues you face every single day?
Okay.
So people can learn from there.
So, and typical issues that I face during my workplace will be, for example, either password reset, they're calling password reset, my account is locked, I can't access the VPN, I can't access Citrix, the remote system, or I may need my scanner installed, and depends what kind of scanner it is, whether it's a HP scanner that you need to install from the software from the software system, or whether you need to actually physically manually plug the scanner cable in and configure it with the IP address in order to install the scanner. They may call in about I need to install my print. I need a print added to my profile, or they may call in about asking about a ticket that you've escalated further and say, what's happening with this ticket, this and that. Like, how come they haven't got back to me? It's good. You know the amount of times people have called in and said, this matter is really urgent, this and that. Like, I've called in like numerous times now that you guys haven't got back to me. IT, why is that for? And then it's upon you to make sure that you come up with a good reasoning. So I even had a call today and they said to me, like, they took my PC away. You guys took my PC away a few days ago. And I need the PC urgently. There's no replacement at all whatsoever. I can't do my job, this and that. And that's when I told them, before we took the PC, we gave you an estimated time. And we also did advise you to ask for a replacement. And the PC is currently being re-imaged and is being looked into by the IT team. All I can tell you is we are looking into the matter and I'll update you as soon as I can. Just reassuring them. But yeah, people call in. Some people may call in with attitude. For example, a lot of people that tend to call in with attitudes are the consultants who feel like they're entitled since they get paid like what, £1,000 an hour, consultants. So they feel like entitled and they feel like their time is more valuable than yours. So they may call in and be like, for example, if they're calling in from an external, one more important thing is this. Don't reset or send login details to someone who is calling from an external number, because the company themselves will either you chat to the users through Teams, or you may have a desk phone or soft phone. They may call in. If they call in from their mobile number and they're not calling in from a company number, and you reset their login details, consultants they may be very demanding and say to you, I need you to reset my password right now. A patient may pass away right now. I'm dealing with a patient right now. I need my password reset. In that matter, obviously, if you're not familiar with it, you'll panic if you don't know the procedure. So best thing to do is, if you come across situations like that, is you tell them, due to security company policies, I won't be able to reset your password as of this moment due to the fact that you're currently calling me from an external number. So what I will advise you to do is contact the consultant liaison team, because every company has a liaison team that will liaise with the IT service desk. Contact them, please. And they'll get in touch with us. Please ask them to include your number when they contact us so we can get in touch with you straight away and help you out. So yeah, and I think I even got a call once that saying that he said to me, if you don't reset my password right now, if this patient dies, it's your fault.
So what did you do then?
I panicked.
Panic mode.
I panicked. That's when instead of telling him to call the consultant liaison team, I was calling them myself, trying to verify his ID, asking me, should I reset the password?
Yeah.
So yeah,
life and death.
Life and death. I was panicking. I was like, I have to take the steps this time.
Wow.
But yeah, so be careful of that too, because consultants do feel entitled.
Okay. So you normally deal, I guess, Office 365?
Yes.
And a lot of questions come from Office 365.
Yes.
What are the main things you need to look at as a first line when it comes to Office 365? Okay.
Most technical issues that people tend to face is when they say, for example, their emails are not updating, and the application is not starting off, or when they say, they've sent an email but it's not reaching the recipient for some reason. And what other issues are there in Office 365? It could also lead to issues within their Outlook profile. If their 365 Office if their Outlook profile is not connected to 365 and it shows that it's offline, that's also a big issue. And it says that it's not connected to the Exchange server, which is a big issue too. And what also is an issue, they may ask you issues also within the fact that send on behalf as well, if they want to be able to send on behalf of a shared mailbox as well. So what else is there? Yeah, so it varies. They recall it varies. Okay. It varies.
That's good. So you have been working in tech sector for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
ومحي هاي علاقة ودي بدنايت هذا الله له تن مسكح هذا وكونت هاي. Most difficult issue you ever faced.
Okay, I would say the most difficult issue that I faced was when I talk about a difficult issue, as in like when it comes
technical.
to technical that I need to escalate, or when the network went completely down. And the
entire network,
it went completely down, and they called in, and there was nothing I can do about it. And they were calling in that, and when I put the phone down, there was another phone call coming in, back to back. I spoke to the networks team, and they said that we're working on bringing the network back
and
up.
The help desk calls are coming in.
It is
non-stop.
coming in, ringing. That I think that they sent like 150 to 250 emails came through once they got back the network. All those emails just came flooding into the server, into the ticketing system. That was the most difficult day I faced in service desk.
Wow.
And also one of the big thing as well is you need to be patient as well when it comes to being on the phone, is because you will come across not only rude, crass people, but you'll come across people that are quite stupid sometimes, that lack common sense, and also people that can't speak English too as well. You come across people that can't speak English as well. And sometimes I ask myself until today, like until this day, for example, like how are you working in the health industry sector and you can't even formulate a sentence properly? Like sometimes I even ask myself that. Like it's actually wild. It comes down to also you have to be very patient as well with them. I came to a realization, whereas like when you're speaking to them on the phone, like you have to be polite, but you have to like treat them like children in a way. You have to hold them by the hand by step and show them. But most of the times, if you remote into their device, you don't even have to explain yourself. For example, the main issue comes where you need them to do something on their side. That's when you have to walk them through it, like a password reset, for example. But most of the times, you should remote into their device and you do it yourself. Some of them might try to conversate with you. It's up to you. Best thing to do is just ask them, oh, so how's your day going? Like, how you finding today, this and that.
And you're doing the job in the meantime.
Yeah, and you're doing the job in the meantime. That's what they are. You ask them, oh, so have you been working hard today? And they just ask you, you just banter around with them. you just make jokes with them, but yeah.
Okay, basically you're saying that badan waxay ka baqayaan luqada this and that.
Yeah,
people like that work in professional settings and environments.
Exactly.
Nothing to worry about.
100%. If someone who can't formulate a sentence is able to get into the industry, or if someone, there's even people that get into IT, for example, that got heavy accents, that can speak English, but they got that accent and they're not, and their wordings don't flow, for example, and they're still able to get into the industry. So everyone here, all I'll say is there is no excuse at all whatsoever. There should be nothing that could hold you back at all. All you need to do is just apply, that's it. And what you can even do is, most of these job sites, you can literally, once you update your CV, you can literally save your CV within the job sites, and all you're doing is just click and apply, that's it. All you're doing is you
have the CV.
Exactly, you have the CV uploaded there, so all you're doing is you're clicking apply, that's it. You can do it whilst you're listening to, I don't know what you guys listening to, Quran, Hes, whatever you're listening to. Or even if you're watching a TV show, hatta, or whatever you're doing, or you can have your other device in your hand whilst you're watching the show, hatta, even if you don't want to read about the specs, job spec. Yeah, just click apply, even if you don't want to read about the job spec. Important thing is, once they get back to you and you're speaking to the recruiter and they tell you what company that they're calling from, then you can just read up on the job spec. The main thing is they'll ask you about your personality and what makes you want to drive. And also, main thing, one important question they'll also ask you is, why are you leaving?
Exactly.
That's a very important question, which will always come up. Every single time. There's no way that question isn't coming up.
How do you answer?
I said this. The main reason why I left was, and you also make sure, by the way, before I answer the question, is you never badmouth the company. You don't say anything bad about the company. So what I said was this. I said the main reason why I left.
Don't say man was bad, yeah.
Oh yeah, you could never say that. That's close to haram. Don't say that, guys. So what you say is this. This is what you actually say. You say is this. This is what you say, yeah. I said the main reason why I left was because I'm after progression and I want to progress in my career. I saw myself as being stagnant, not being exposed to enough experience, dealing with more customers, more users, seeing more information, coming across more technical issues, this and that. That's what you meant. I think that's the most appropriate answer to give.
That's the best answer.
Yeah. And they'll also ask you about, and also like scenario-based questions they will ask you is, how's your team dynamic? How many members were you guys working together? How was you guys as a team? Were you guys close together? Were you guys communicating with each other? They might ask you questions like that too, depending on the company.
Let me ask another question, because it's very interesting and happened to you, I believe.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked with someone from GlobalNet at your workplace?
Oh, yes. That's the funniest.
That story.
That story was the funniest. So when I started, alhamdulillah, I can't lie to Ma'alin, okay, I'll tell the story. So when I started the first line role, they hired 3 people. They hired me and 2 others. But my start date was a week prior to their start date. So I was the one that started first. And then on my first day, they liked me once I started this and that, yeah? And they ambushed me with this question saying that, did you know that we also hired someone else from your company, Omar, GlobalNet? I'm like, what? Someone else from GlobalNet? In my head, I'm like, I was like, no way, who did he hire? And then after they told me a sister's name, a sister that came from here. And then after, I was like to her, no way, you actually did. Did she actually leave GlobalNet too? And then after, they were like, yeah, she left GlobalNet, this and that. They were like, is she a part of your team? Of course she's a part of my team. We were colleagues. I actually remember how we used to actually help each other out, this and that. We used to work together. I'm really excited to know that she's really starting this company. This is something I'm looking forward to.
Okay, there's another question, Mr. Omar. Remember, one of the questions we did about, how many tickets you close a day?
That's very ridiculous.
The number of average tickets someone closes?
That is a very good question. So there is also, for example, when they say tickets, they'll be most likely be referring to phone calls and emails that are sent together. They can be count as incidents. So best thing to say is on average, for example, just say you're closing at least, depending on the company. If you tell them that you're a big scale company, for example, and you're supporting multiple users, that's when you say that you're closing from anywhere between, either you can say between 15 to 23. I'll say that's realistic, depending on the company size. So for example, and I'll give you an example, my company, for example, on a day, averagely, I close around if it's busy, on a normal day, I close around 15 to 20. That should be standard. So I think best number to say is any number between 15 to 20. You should not over exaggerate it and say you close 40 tickets regularly. Can there be days whereas you close 40 is unrealistic, but are there days where you say that you close around 30 tickets? And then you say, yeah, but it shouldn't be something that's prevalent, that's normalized. You should be saying, you close around 15 to 20 on a normal day. And say at least that, for example, at least that when it comes to incidents are different from request. Request comes under, you can say if they may ask you, you can also add the extra information and say, within a week, I roughly close around set up 5 new users. But the users usually have tasks as well. Tasks meaning the application that you give them access to. So a request, when they put in a new user request and the new user in itself is one task, they say, we want this person to be given access to this application and consult CIS. If they say they want to give them access to other applications like ICA, application they need within the system, that in itself counts as a task. So depending on the company, so if you say that you set up at least 5 new users per week and you're closing 20 incidents a day, then that is adi, 15 to 20, that's good.
Earlier, multiple times you mentioned if someone have an issue, for example, you remote to their machine. Yeah. So what software do you use in order to remote to the machine?
Yes, there's different types of software, but our company, we use remote viewer.
Okay.
Yeah, we use remote viewer, or we remote in through SCCM, but when we put in the host name, etc., through SCCM, we still use the remote viewer application. So remote viewer. There's times whereas, for example, I'll give you an example. There's times whereas, you're not able to remote in with the host name. So in that scenario, what should you do? As a typical engineer, you should know that you should be able to ping the host name and check to see if the IP address is getting picked up from the host name, etc. So once you do ping the host name, the IP address will come up, and then after you could try remoting in using the IP address. Sometimes it doesn't. Rarely, it doesn't work with the host name. So what you do then is you remote in with the IP address. And even if the IP address then doesn't work, then you can remote in using remote desktop connection too. That is an extreme though. That way you remote in, not through SCCM remote desktop connection, and then you put in your admin credential. That will rarely happen, if anything, rarely. But most of the times, if the host, like Ma'ali said, if the host name doesn't work, the IP address will work. 99% of the times, yes.
Okay.
And it also depends, for example, one main reason that I actually came across was the fact that most issues come across from the fact that these users, they do not restart their computers at all whatsoever. Most of the time, they do not restart their computer. And not only just that, you'll see sometimes, I came across the other day, the uptime of the computer was, I was shocked, 34 days.
Okay, another thing you mentioned earlier is a VPN.
Yes.
People use VPN.
Yeah.
People work from home,
Yes,
from
of
abroad,
course.
from holiday.
Of course.
So organizations, they use different type of VPN.
Yes.
Can you mention maybe some of the typical VPNs
So-
you support, and
so-
what are the main issues with the VPN connections? most of
Perfect.
the
Yes,
time?
I'll get into that, man, because there's so many issues. So in regards to that matter, for example, the VPN that my company uses, I can speak on my company only. We use Cisco AnyConnect VPN. That's what we use. There's the Cisco AnyConnect, but the Cisco, what the VPN does is it mirrors their company Wi-Fi connection. It mirrors that connection. So there's that only works, the VPN only works with the company device they give you. Whereas there's also consultants that you support that use their personal device to access their system as well. They're two different things, but I'll get into both. So for starters, typical issues with the VPN. They say, I'm not able to connect into my VPN. What do? What you know is this, most of the time the VPN is linked to their main login credentials, which you will find on Active Directory. So what you do is you look them up on Active Directory. First thing is you check if the account is locked. That account is not locked. For example, it depends on the error message they give you. So if they tell you, it says incorrect password, for example, you check their Active Directory, you bring up their profile and you see, is the account locked? Yes, it's locked. I've unlocked your account for you. Try accessing it now. And they say, I'm still not able to access it. What you do then is you check to see if their password expired. So, and the command that I use to check to see if the password expired is net user. You put in their username, space / domain. And then that will bring up their last time they set their password when their password expires. So if their password expires, every company has a website, whereas they're able to reset their password through the web browser that will then allow them to connect to the VPN. So those are the main typical issues, but you may come across an issue whereas you won't be able to help them remotely, like when they say their VPN certificate has expired. What do I do in regards to that matter? When they say their certificate has expired, obviously you can't remote into their device since they're not connected. Since they're not connected to the VPN, wouldn't be able to remote into the device. What you then do is this: you tell them that they need to come into their clinic, etc. Come on site, and you'll be able to deal with it then. So what you then do is they come on site, they give you a call and tell you, here, I'm on site. So what then happens is the laptop then automatically connects to the network that's on site. So what you then do is you remote in and then you renew their VPN certificate. And then the best thing to do is you get them to disconnect from the Wi-Fi, because when they're connected to the network system, their company network system, they won't be able to connect to the VPN, because what the VPN does is it mirrors their company network, which is what allows them to access the system. Basically, yeah. I can get into the Citrix as well.
Yeah, go on.
So there's also an Citrix. So there's what Citrix is, and the remote system that even if you have a personal device, you're able to access the system. Also, both the VPN and Citrix have their own Active Directory role group, which you give them access to. So you've given them access to the Citrix group and on their Active Directory profile, their main profile, etc. So what they then do is you give them the URL link to access their Citrix system. You give it to them. It will ask them. Some companies are different. Some companies may be using Azure Directory. Some others may be using RSA tokens. It's different. So if it's linked to Azure Directory, for example, what you then do is they may even link it to the MFA. So what you do then is it'll probably come up with a Microsoft login detail. You tell them to put in their email, same as their computer password. They pop in their password, and then you just give them access through on the Active Directory and just give them the link, and then you just walk them through and they should be able to access it. It's just as simple as that.
Other question is, for example,
Yeah.
a lot of people worry about the culture when it comes to prayer, what about comes to
yes,
Jum'ah, when
of
it comes
course.
to, for example, mixing with other people.
Of course.
So, in your experience,
Yes.
how do you value the culture, comedy culture in IT, in professional settings?
Of course.
Yeah?
So
Like you place.
So in regards to that matter, what you need to do is you need to make sure that you're a man upon your principle. No matter what, you should never compromise your salah, your deen, over this dunya at all. You need to have that mindset prefix already. And you should also know that within the company, they do respect religions, etc., this and that, and they would not violate it. And if they were to do, hypothetically, you can always report them to HR, but that's a different story. So what you do is, for starters, when it comes to your salah, you need to make sure that your salah is not a burden upon them. So otherwise, if you make it seem like it's a burden upon them, they'll find it annoying. So meaning that your five daily prayers, you do not need to go to the masjid unless it's Jum'ah. So what you can do is, what I personally do is, for example, I do my wudu around like 10:30, 10:40, 11 o'clock, around that time. Some companies have prayer rooms.
Yeah, they have prayer room. Yeah.
Or meeting rooms, or even there's quiet exits that you can pray at. So you just go pray 5 minutes, you come back, they won't even see it as much. You don't even need to tell them that you're going to pray. When it comes to Yawmul Jum'ah, what you do is you make sure that you tell them, Friday is my prayer day, so I need to have my lunch at a specific time. So, for example, now khutbah di gadal sida u dhacde is around salah times around like 12:20 to 12:30 jama'ah di la gala. So you just take your lunch 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. You make sure that you are taking your 1 hour lunch and you do not need extra time. Remember, you need to make sure that the salah is not a burden among these people. So it's upon you to make sure that it's not a burden at all whatsoever.
But it's better than any other retail or warehouse.
Oh
or
yes, it's
like
way
that,
better
course.
than
Yeah.
retail.
Yeah.
Because the way I see it as like, even like when it comes to like security, retail, they won't value your presence, your ethic. They won't value you even as a person. And even that, like for example, like even within the corporate sector, and there are laws that the companies have to adhere and abide by, and they can't be discriminating at all whatsoever. And if they try say inflammatory terminologies when it comes to against your salah, and they try single you out, this and that, that's them discriminating you, and they would not want that lashback at all.
As you can see from the class, we have a lot of sisters.
Yes.
Even online.
Yes.
A lot of them active.
Yes.
Applying for first IT role. And in your experience, what is the best advice you can give them? And how's the market for sisters, and what are the main tips they can, or maybe rules they can follow?
Of course. So in regards to the sisters, all I'll say is the sisters, I'll be very honest, they have a bigger advantage than anyone else because of the labor laws that are in place, because of affirmative action that's in place, because of also the diversity laws that are in place as well. We are Ajnabis. You are more likely to get the job than an Adam person because they value diversity a lot. Example, you're black, also you're Muslim, also. That's the diversity in itself, that they want to be inclusive
with
in the
hijab,
company.
of course.
With the hijab, even better. That's them making it even more diversified. So if anything, you have every advantage over Adam people. You do. That's what I believe in general. You have more advantage, especially when it comes to like getting a first line job. You have more advantage because every tech company nowadays, they want to be diversified. They want to be seen as they're very inclusive. So yes, sir, you have every advantage. All you need to do is you need to make sure that you have that right mindset, and you know that you will be more likely to be picked than the Adam person. So you shouldn't be getting nervous and anything at all whatsoever. There's no excuse. You just have to set your mind straight, and then you can do it.
During the 2 years you are in tech, Did you have any challenges or setbacks? And if yes, how do you overcome these challenges?
So, and in regards to, I think what happens is there can be a setback that whereas like they may put you, what happened to me was especially like this, you can get a setback whereas like they may put you under review, for example. If once you start getting comfortable with the shaqqa, I think I learned from this as well. Like, and I'll advise you guys to do the same as well. Once you get a job and you pass the probation period, don't start getting too complacent. Don't start coming in late. Don't start not only coming in late, but don't start moving lazy about doing the tickets. Just make sure that you keep up with things. My advice is, even if you do come in late, best thing is to do is don't make it something they see as a regular habit. Because if they do see it as a regular habit, then again, they will put you under review. Just remember that once you do get into the job, even if you're comfortable, etc., just remember you are always replaceable. Same way they hired you, they can find someone else to hire too. So just also keep that in the back of your mind as well, that everyone is replaceable.
Okay, Omar, let me ask you a question. Now, AI, automation, machine learning, all of these are coming into IT support, especially first line, second line.
Yeah.
So how these tools are affecting you, Eddie?
Yeah.
And what is your future goals?
Okay.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5-10 years?
Okay, so in regards to AI tools, I'll say Alhamdulillah for starters, my company, they haven't brought that in. They're still quite far back with their sys software system that they're using. Even that in itself needs upgrading. We just migrated over to 365 recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were using Office 2019 and 2016 version.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Also most of the issues as well, like they require quite hardware stuff, and most of the issues require hardware stuff. If with AI in itself, I don't feel too threatened. I would have felt quite a bit threatened, like if I was, for example, like within the cloud industry, something that's fully virtual and doesn't require like hardware storage, etc. This and that. That's when I would quite feel threatened about AI. And my future goals is definitely to progress within the career, either hopefully get into somewhere like either could be cloud, security, or even build my experience, not only get to myself to a third line role, but Wintel even as well. You could go. But my best goal is to actually get away from hardware, because everything else is changing. Most of it is becoming virtual. Nowadays, like our company, we use physical servers there's a physical, there's physical servers. Not at all. We don't use cloud. There's physical servers, and the world and everything is shifting. Like he's already shifted to cloud, etc. This and that, AWS. So my best thing to do is to hopefully in the future get into somewhere that aligns with that.
What advice would you give someone who's just going to start
IT?
Like,
as in, like, start applying for a job, or to start, like...
No, it's apply for IT job.
Apply for IT job. Yeah. My advice would be to them, for starters, is make sure that your CV is sorted. Come to Ma'alin Abdullah, speak to Ma'alin about CV. Ma'alin will always be there to help you. If you have any questions about how a CV is meant to be done, this and that, ask Ma'alin to send you a template, etc. Once Ma'alin sends you a template and it even helps you out with a CV, also seek help from people who are actually within the IT industry too. Ask them for help as well. Ask them for advice within that CV. So number one is to make sure that you build your CV. And then after you build your CV, make sure you're applying for as many jobs as possible. And then when you apply for many jobs as possible and your CV is damn good, then what will happen is once you apply for the job, the recruiter then will call you. Then it's incumbent upon you to actually carry yourself, make yourself seem like you're actually driven and you want the job. And then after that, when the recruiter is satisfied with whatever you just stated, then you end up being in an interview. He will give you an interview date and ask you your availability. Are you available for this interview date? If he tells you the interview is at 1:00 and the company, they have spoken to them and they said that they're more than happy to interview you on Wednesday, 1 p.m. for example, and say like, for example, you have things planned, you have to drop your plans. You have to make sure that becomes your number one priority. So you take that up, do the interview. Within the interview, they'll send you the job spec, and they'll give you like a summary of what you'll be doing within the IT role. So search up about the company, search up about, for example, if they say to you, oh, you're going to be support, you're going to be using Active Directory, whatever they say, for example, read up upon that, do your own research upon that too, watch YouTube videos, for example. And then once you've done that, all of that, and then you just go into the interview with an open mind, be pleasant and see how it goes. And then just learn from each mistake. So if you make a mistake on there, the recruiter, most likely, they will not tell you, in the interview, don't think they'll tell you, you got the job or you won't get the job, but you get a rough idea. You will have an idea of whether you got the job or not, but how receptive they are to you, to what you're saying. So you will have an idea of whether you got the job or not. Even, if they say to you, they've got a salary that they're going to pay you like 25, 24,000, and they have to accept it. Look for something else, but accept it, because your main thing is to get into that environment, get your feet wet. Best thing to say, get your feet wet in that environment, and then it will help you get familiar within the office dynamic too, whilst you could be looking for any other jobs too. So don't look at the salary as a major thing, but you could get lucky and get a job that pays you over even 32,000 as your first role. If you do, just say Alhamdulillah, la sahla. But if you get like 24, 25, just settle for it. Settle for it in the meantime, learn, gain experience, and then leave. You need to focus on the longevity, building your rapport. So that's my advice to you guys. Work hard.
If you could have one superpower in tech, what would be?
One superpower in tech would be able to read their minds. That's what it would be, being able to read the customer's mind. In regards to tech power, as in like being able to resolve their issues, right? Yeah. So I'll say best thing to do is being able to read their mind, because even if you resolve it for them, they still might be rude around this and that. Some might even try to report you as well. Some might even try, if you don't know how to do something for it, but always be polite, no matter what, even if they swear at you.
MashaAllah, great night, informative, and we benefited from his, MashaAllah, experience and journey. Yeah?
Thank you very much, man.
Let's give him. And I will thank Mr. Omar Ossoble. Thank you very much. Well done.